My grandfather told me the earth remembers everything. He said that before the deep ditches and the high banks, the land around our home was open. It was just us, our farms, and the quiet rhythm of our ancestors. We didn't build to hide. We built to belong. In the 13th century, the Kingdom of Benin started to change. This wasn't a sudden war. It was a choice. Under the Oba, the people began to mark their territory. They used simple tools and their own strength to move tons of earth. They weren't just digging a ditch. They were drawing a line that said, "This is who we are." It started small. Just a ridge here, a trench there. It was work, yes, but it was communal work. Every family played a part. In those early years, the work was a sign of pride. We were shaping the land to fit our future. We didn't know then that we were starting to build a wonder. We only knew we were building together. The rhythm of our digging changed. It wasn't just about marking the land anymore. The talk began to shift. It started with the traders. Men who came from lands far beyond our reach. They brought beautiful things, yes, but they also brought stories. Stories of distant kings who did not ask before they took. As the 14th and 15th centuries approached, the Kingdom of Benin grew in wealth and influence. This power attracted attention. The simple boundaries that once marked our community now needed to serve a more serious purpose. Defense. The Oba ordered the expansion. The moat began to grow, not just in length, but in depth and scale, becoming a complex system of walls and trenches designed to guard the capital against any threat. I remember my grandfather saying that even the air felt different. We were no longer just building for ourselves. We were building for our survival. The pride remained, but it was now sharpened by caution. We looked at the strangers at our gates. And then we looked at our shovels. We dug deeper. It was overwhelming. You couldn't just look at a section of the moat. You had to look at the whole horizon. My grandfather said the ground seemed to move. Thousands of us, side by side, our breath and our shovels moving as one. The dust was thick. It got into our hair, our clothes, our very skin. It was exhausting work, and yet, no one stopped. This was not just labor. It was a feat of engineering that required the mobilization of the entire kingdom. To dig trenches this deep and build embankments this high, the people had to manage soil stability and urban planning on a massive scale. It took millions of hours of manual work. This was the physical manifestation of the Oba's authority and the people's collective strength. I remember my grandfather telling me that when you stood on the edge of a finished section, you felt small. You realized that you weren't just digging a ditch. You were part of a giant. You were building something that would stand long after your own hands had returned to the earth. It was a heavy, beautiful burden. We were making history. And we were doing it with nothing but our hands and our belief in the kingdom. Then, the quiet ended. The stories the traders told were no longer just whispers. They were at our doorstep. My grandfather described the tension in the city as if the air itself had gone still. We didn't scramble. We didn't panic. We stood at the edge of the moat, our hands gripping our spears, looking out at the thread that had come to test everything we had built. The moat was designed as a multi-layered defensive system, a barrier that integrated deep trenches and high, impenetrable walls. When faced with external aggression, the moat acted as the first line of security, forcing any encroaching force to navigate a physical landscape that had been fundamentally altered to favor the kingdom. It transformed the terrain into a weapon, proving that the Oba's command had turned the very earth into a fortress. I remember him describing the moment we realized it worked. The fear that had been gnawing at our hearts shifted. As we looked down from the high banks, we saw the confusion of those who arrived expecting an easy path, only to find the earth had been moved to defy them. We stood tall, not just because of our strength, but because the land itself was holding us up. The moat was no longer just earth. It was our shield. After that day, the city changed. It wasn't a loud, sudden change, but a slow settling in of peace. We walked through our streets differently. We didn't look over our shoulders as often. We knew the boundaries were deep, and the banks were high. We felt wrapped in a protection that was etched into the very soil of our home. The moat did more than just stop invaders. It reshaped the administration and the spirit of Benin. By creating a clear, physical boundary, the kingdom fostered a period of internal stability. The society became highly organized, with the Oba's authority reinforced by this permanent, architectural symbol of power. For generations, the moat defined the limit of the state and the safety of the citizens within it. It became a part of us. We grew up knowing that our peace was a product of our work. When we walked along the banks, we weren't just looking at a ditch. We were looking at our promise to each other. We were safe, and for a long time, that was enough. It was a time of confidence. The kind that only comes when you know exactly where you stand. And you know who is standing with you. Today, when I walk these paths, the world is louder. The city has grown, and the edges of the earth are often buried under concrete and trash. It is easy to look at the fragmented, overgrown banks and see only neglect. But my grandfather's stories taught me to see deeper. The earth doesn't forget. Even now, beneath the weeds and the modern mess, the bones of our ancestors' resolve remain. The degradation of this monumental network is a reflection of modern pressures. Urban expansion, neglect, and the struggle to balance development with the preservation of history. Today, the Great Benin Moat is more than an ancient site in decline. It is a critical piece of global heritage, waiting for a collective effort to restore its dignity and acknowledge its role in the story of human achievement. I wonder what my grandfather would say if he saw it now. He wouldn't be angry at the city. He would be disappointed in our memory. To preserve the moat isn't just about digging out dirt or clearing away trash. It is about remembering that we are capable of doing great things when we act as one. We are the guardians of this legacy. The future isn't just what we build tomorrow. It's what we choose to save from yesterday. The earth is still here. We just have to decide, once again, to honor it.